So for this story time, I wanted the overall theme, to be about the Pacific Northwest. I'm originally from Washington, so I'm pretty familiar with the coasts and the different plants and animals that live there, visiting tide pools and the woods, rivers, things like that. I intended for this story time to be for kids probably between the ages of 4 and 8. Um, I picked this because they already have some vocabulary about the things around them, hopefully. So I'd be able to ask them, what kind of animals they already know about, if they've ever visited certain places, if they've ever visited the ocean or rivers or the woods or anything like that, if they've come across any animals that they live next to, like squirrels or raccoons, or I've seen owls in my backyard and stuff like that. So I'm sure that they have also seen animals close to them as well. So asking them about that. So background knowledge. I picked this also because it allows kids to connect what they've learned to the environment. They might not know what the trees in their backyard are called. It's like, oh, that's a Douglas fir tree and not just a tree. So I think it would help with their vocabulary, and also connecting what they see to where they live, kind of a bigger picture. Um, while this is intended for kids who live, like Northern California, all the way up through Canada and some of Alaska, I think that this could be used pretty much anywhere, just to kind of express that there are different places in the world and things like that. Like, I remember living in Washington and we had story times about the desert and things like that. So even though I didn't live there at the time, it was still interesting to know what coyotes are and how cactus work and things like that. So I think this could be used pretty much anywhere. So the vocabulary tip, or I'm sorry, the literacy tip that I would give to parents, is that interacting with them while they're out and about, naming things, asking them what they hear outside, like different bird songs or, rustling and the river and things like that, and naming things, I think is really important, to help with that vocabulary and help them feel like they're more connected, and things like that. So I hope you enjoy everything that I put together for this. All right, so for my puppet version, or my puppet part of the assignment, I wanted to do I'm a Salmon. I drew these. These are salmon eggs, and you can see their little eyes in there. Then I have an elephant, which is bigger than a fry, but not quite a salmon. And this is about how big they are. And then I have I guess it's more of a plush, but I'm going to act like it's a puppet. And so my song incorporates her too. So here's how it goes. So it goes, just a little egg I am, buried under rock and sand. Soon I'll be an egg with an eye, then an elephant, then a fry. I'm a salmon. 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 Just a little smolt I am. Catch me if you can. Predators think that I'm tasty. Hiding under trees I'll be. I'm a salmon. 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 A great big salmon is what I am. Swimming in the ocean. Back to the river. I smell my way. Maybe you'll meet my kids someday. I'm a salmon. 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 So for this, afterwards, or maybe before, I would talk about salmons here. And I think this puppet is pretty cool, or this plush, so you can kind of see what they look like in like 3D. I would explain that I know this is a female salmon because she's nice and smooth. Male salmons kind of have more of like a hump on their back, and they have a longer bottom jaw hook. So she has a small mouth here, rather than a hook. Um, and before or after, I would like to ask the kids, what they already know about salmon, if they've ever eaten salmon, um, things like that, or if they've ever gone fishing or they know someone who's gone fishing. So this would be better for kids who are a little bit older. I would say probably like kindergarten or first grade, 5 to 8. But this is a good way to introduce like eggs and, salmon change color and things like that. They start off kind of silvery and then they kind of turn green. And then when they go back to the rivers, they turn this red color when they're ready to mate, and lay their eggs. So I just think it's kind of a cool way to introduce that to them. All right, so for my story, I picked 123 Salish Sea, a Pacific Northwest counting book. I picked this one even though it's for older kids and they should already know how to count, past 10 and stuff like that. This book actually goes up to 1,000,000, which is pretty neat. What I really like about it is that it introduces different animals, and things like that, from the sea and the ocean, from the Pacific Northwest, and things like that. So anyway, that's why I picked it. It matches the theme. So I'll read it. So 123 Salish Sea. One stubby squid exploring below. And for some of these, I wanted to introduce like different signs and stuff. So for squid, I'd show the kids that it goes like that, squid, in sign language, which is kind of neat. Like it's something, because squid don't really make noises, so you can't go, oh, what sound does a squid make? You can introduce sign language. 2 banana slugs intertwined. That's them. 3 lump suckers hanging on. Oops, the camera is being backwards is confusing to me. 4 moon jellies drifting about. 5 salmon swimming home. And I can remind the kids that we talked about salmons earlier. Talked about those earlier. 6 nudibranches dancing all night. 7 seals napping all day. And I asked, what sound do seals make? Oh, oh, oh. Things like that. Oops. 8 kelp crabs lunching in a forest. And how you say crab in sign language is you get your little pincers out. That's pretty cute. 9 orcas hunting together. This is another sound one. You can make kind of these whale sounds, like a ooh. But also, orcas make clicking sounds to figure out where they are, kind of like how bats do with sonar. So they click, 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 click. Figure out where they are and where their food is. 10 sand lance in an auklet's bill. That's pretty cool. 20 clams for an octopus's feast. I can ask again, who here has had clams before? I've had clams with butter and some veggies on the side. Very good. 50 surf scooters diving deep. 100 sculpins in a clam garden pool. Look at the little toes. They're eating off of the toes. Eating the skin off of it. It's kind of funny. 500 dolans flying at once. Have you seen a flock of birds out there? They're able to fly and they don't run into each other. Very impressive. 1,000 years of a tree cedar sharing life. I can kind of share too that the rings of a tree can decide how old it is. So during the winter, it doesn't grow as much. And then during the summer, spring and summer, it grows a little bit more. So that's why you get these rings here. They're very, very old, and they're very, very big in Washington. 10,000 plankton growing at midnight. She's looking at them there. 1 million raindrops returning to the Salish Sea. I'm gonna make a joke here. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just kidding. And that's the end of the story. So, like I said, I like that it introduces the animals, and it goes into higher numbers than regular counting books do, which kind of expresses how vast everything is and how big everything is. So that's kind of the reason why I introduced it. But yeah, that's it. So for my finger play portion, I'm gonna do the song Douglas Fir. It's another Pacific Northwest theme, where you act out different plants and things like that. So Douglas firs, mushrooms, and sword ferns. So to start, I would probably introduce the moves first. So I'm gonna say, when I say Douglas fir, you guys are gonna stretch up, put your hands up as high as you can, stretch, stretch, stretch. And when I say a tiny little mushroom, we're gonna make a tiny little mushroom. We're gonna squish down like a tiny little mushroom. And when I say a sword fern, you guys are gonna swish your arms like you have a sword. Okay, do we think we can do that? So here's how it goes. Douglas fir, a Douglas fir, a tiny little mushroom and a Douglas fir, a sword fern, a sword fern, a tiny little mushroom and a Douglas fir. That's how it goes, and then I might do it again. Can we do that again? A Douglas fir, a Douglas fir, a tiny little mushroom and a Douglas fir, a sword fern, a sword fern, a tiny little mushroom and a Douglas fir. So that's how it goes. And then afterwards, I might show off little plants and stuff that we get from the forest. So pine cones, little mushrooms, if it's appropriate. Some mushrooms you don't want to bring in from the Pacific Northwest. Douglas fir, seeds or the leaves, sword ferns, acorns, things like that, just so they can see them in person a little bit better. And I always thought that kind of stuff was interesting when I was a kid. I was more interested in physical artifacts, I guess. So that's what we would do. Okay, so for wrapping everything up, at the very end, I think asking questions about what we just did would be something that I would want to do. So asking kids what their favorite part was, if they learned anything new, or even what was your favorite animal that we talked about or didn't talk about. Like, we didn't really talk about birds that much, other kinds of fish, things like that. So just asking them what kind of animals they like from the Pacific Northwest as well. I would also think that a little activity at the end could be really fun. So I was thinking that we could either plant a Douglas fir, and I could do that by showing off the pine cones, which hold onto the seeds. And the way that they work, and I would tell them this, is that pine cones start off pretty locked in, if that makes sense, pretty narrow, I suppose. And then once they mature a little bit, the shell opens up and the seeds are actually in the pine cone. So they might not know that that's where the seeds come from. So I could show them the seeds and we can plant that. Or, and this might be better, but it would take a longer planting. Planting the seeds post the activity so that they grow into little spruce trees, saplings, I guess, and plant those outside too. so that'd make them feel like they're doing something. I mean, they are doing something, um, and kind of uh, explain to them that like a little seed can turn into a big Douglas fir after thousands of years. Um, but it's still pretty cool. Um, so yeah, that's what I guess what I'd plan for afterwards: a reflection and an activity like that.